Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today is another Bob and Richard Answer Their Mail show. We have lots of questions from our listeners, and we always can use more. So send us more questions at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com, or those of you who have emails for Richard or me or his Twitter account, you can send them there. Or sometimes just on the Las Vegas Advisor, gamblingwithanedge.com, on one of those blogs that either is the show blog or my blog or something like that.
Or the Discord.
Now, a few weeks ago, I posted a situation in my weekly blog that may be found at either gamblingwithanedge.com or bobdancer.com. A video poker player found a $1.99.8 game in a bank of machines with no other games that had a game higher than 98%. With slot club mailers and promotion, this was an excellent game. There were periodically 10x point multipliers, and reaching the highest tier level was a value to this player. He wanted to know his best strategy was to hammer it, play it slowly so it lasts, or some mixture. Now, my response in the article was that it depended on how profile he was. If he was well known among sharper video poker players, he should hit it very hard because it isn't going to last. If he was low profile, a slower approach would probably milk more money out of the deal. Richard said offline that he had some comments on this article. So, Richard.
Well, I was also, this is the eternal question, right? Not just with video poker, but with table games as well. Do you butcher the cow or you milk it? And the answer is always, it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. As Bob pointed out, if you're well known. But the other thing that's really important is the market you're in. It's a big difference if this game were in Las Vegas or if this game is in the middle of Iowa, because there are probably a lot less professional video poker players in the middle of Iowa and would give you the opportunity to milk it a little bit more slowly. If the opportunity is really good, then you would want to recruit trusted teammates and lock the machine up 24 hours a day and play it around the clock until it ended. So it just depends on exactly the situation and how sharp is the casino, how likely are they to figure it out, what's your competition like in the area. All of those factors go into it. So it's never a very easy one-size-fits-all answer to a question like that.
Good. I agree with everything he said. Next question. What would you recommend for someone who keeps winning drawings, perhaps 3 or 4 in a row? The casino likes that I'm playing a lot, but the players seem not so happy with me. Should I play in somebody else's name and after a while just for cover and give a percentage of my winnings? Now, again, it depends. Are you, or does the casino think you're a winning player? If so, the best solution is to take 4 or 6 months off at that casino and then start playing again. When one guy keeps winning the drawing, inevitably, lots of players will complain about it, and the casino managers will probably decide they have a problem that needs fixing. You will not like their fixes, whether it means lowering pay schedules, changing the rules so that everybody gets 1,000 free tickets every week so that your play is heavily diluted, or perhaps restricting you to even eliminating you. Except at a casino, you have reason to believe you're bulletproof. It's wise to take time off when you win as few as 2 drawings back to back. Now, if you're a huge losing player, even with the drawings, go ahead and keep doing what you're doing. A casino will not throw out a player it believes is losing $500,000 a year because of a few complaints. But such players are typically not part of our audience, so this probably doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, and if you're losing $500,000 a year, the casino may cheat the drawing in your favor to give you the prize because they value you so much, or at least that's what happened at the Venetian. They did have a little trouble over that. But you know what? They didn't lose their license. Oh my God, I hear all the time, if a casino cheats, they will lose their license. But you know what? When the Venetian was caught cheating in that way, they didn't lose their license. Amazing.
And there have been more casinos than the Venetian. The Venetian was higher profile, but several drawings are the person going up to draw the ticket has a winning ticket in his hand hidden, and he just reaches into the barrel and he just pulls out the one that's already in his hand. So that has happened. So I recommend is if you can, and if it's done close to the players, get up as close as you can and closely look at the hand before he does it. Now, if he's a good magician and has sleight of hand moves, you're not going to see it anyway. But not everybody has as good of moves as they think they are. There was one time at the Tropicana back in the late 90s, maybe 96, where they had this huge drawing, and the GM at the time was named Jonathan Swain. And this big drawing was on a stage, and he picked out a ticket, and then immediately the room went black. And it came up, and they showed a video of all the new improvements they had done at the Tropicana. And then when it was over, the lights came back on again, and he called out the name of the winner. And he swears it was completely on the up and up, which of course you would expect him to swear. And but who knows? It was certainly suspicious, and a huge number of players cried foul.
Well, but even if he just pulled the thing out and read a name, how do you know what's actually on the ticket? I mean, they don't, sort of show the ticket around on the face so that you can read it yourself. You're taking their word for it. So he really could say anything he wants, and how would anyone know?
That's true, except normally, well, sometimes in the old days when it was a physical ticket, you had to write your name on it. But it's often you don't have to write your name on it, and it's just your number. And the casino usually has no idea that number 1004256 belongs to Richard. So let's move on. I'm a casual enthusiast playing 10 hours of blackjack a year and follow basic strategy while playing $10 double deck. Since playing so little, I'm not versed in using advanced card counting techniques. But even to me, it's obvious when a lot of tens remain in a short double deck shoe. Is it reasonable enough to assume that there's a player edge and increase my bet by another couple of chips? Richard?
Well, I mean, if you're only talking about spreading from 10 to 20, you're probably not going to hurt yourself much. I'm skeptical of how well someone really can tell if there's more tens than small cards without counting cards. So, but as I say, you're probably not hurting yourself much by spreading from 10 to 20. You're not really gaining anything either.
Yeah, if you're generally following the bet, well, lots of little cards come up, bet more. You can get away with that. But another couple of chips isn't going to help you. All right, next question. A friend of mine was trespassed from the Cosmopolitan because of drunk assholery. Cosmo has recently been sold. When the sale finalizes, is he safe to come back? Would you give him your ID? He's a recreational player who likes the free rooms. How would the answer change if he was tossed because of advantage play? I know the ID question then would be no. So, Richard.
Yeah, so he's playing high enough to get free rooms. So that means he's rated and he's a losing player. So in this situation, I would call a host and tell them, look, I had a problem with alcohol. I'm not drinking anymore, whether you are or not. And I'd like to come back. And I think if you, depending on how big a player he is, I think there's a very good chance they will let him back in. If it's been at least, a minimum of 6 months or a year or something like that, I think there's a very good chance they would let him back in. Just tell them, look, I was young and stupid and drunk, and I'm not any of that anymore. And yeah, I think he's got a good shot. If you're any kind of advantage player, then no, you don't call them. You don't ever use an ID in there again. And you could go back and play. Just don't use a player's card or an ID and get your free room somewhere else.
Yeah, and part of it depends on what exactly you did with your drunk assholery. There are some things that are more forgivable than others. Next question. Do either of you have any insight into how carnival games are rated? Specifically ones where the house edge varies so much because of the skill level. For example, Mississippi Stud. I know basic strategy, the house edge is over 5%, but I've never seen a civilian playing that well. In fact, most civilians play terribly. The casino just assign a flat house edge to every player across the board. So I know nothing about this. How about you, Richard?
Yeah, I actually put this to my resident casino insider, and he laughed a lot and said there's not one boss in 100 who would be able to tell the difference between a good player and a bad player and an average player on carnival games. And anybody who's played carnival games has seen bosses come over that have to come and look at the payouts. They don't even know what the game payouts are, let alone what a good player or a bad player is. So all the players have the same average rating for carnival games. On craps and blackjack, they do have a good, average, bad rating that they fill in, and even that, I think they're probably grossly inaccurate. But on carnival games, no chance. It's a flat rate for everybody. Oh, and the player is right. I mean, players play horribly on some of these games. Yeah, I mean, maybe as much as a 20% disadvantage.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what a good war player would be. Next question is for me. Thinking about the minuscule edge in video poker, Bob, do you think that casinos might be waiting for you to lose your edge before you know it? A small drop in effectiveness could lead to major swing. How do you monitor your game as your gameplay continues to deteriorate as you get older and you're still in positive EV? I ask this with all the humility of someone recognizes he is not the man he used to be. Talk about a personal question. I wish I could say that your question is way out of line and I haven't lost a step from my prime. That almost rhymes. But such isn't the case. I do not remember strategies as well as I used to. Occasionally I mix up the game I'm playing with another. This doesn't happen very often, but it still happens. So I review strategies frequently, especially if it's a game I haven't played in a while. It's not a perfect measure by any means, but I let my annual score tell me how well I'm doing. I'm still winning most years, and my annual losses, when they come, are smaller than my annual wins. Plus, I have a few other sources of income and wealth, so it's not a problem yet. But it could become one. I have specific numbers in mind where if I start averaging so much a year in losses or more than this many years than I win, then I'll have to find something else to do with my time. How soon that day will come, if ever, I don't know. Even though I'm still in that winter, video poker is now more of an avocation than a vocation.
Yeah,
So Yeah.
I would just add that a casino is never going to wait to see if maybe you'll lose your edge, right? They want to beat every player every time. And they're not going to gamble with you and say, "Oh, if we just let him play long enough, he'll lose his edge, and then we'll really clean up." No, that's never that's never going to happen. If they think you can beat them, they're going to limit you or throw you out or whatever.
Okay. I recently took advantage of some Sportsbook sign-up bonuses in Arizona and recently Colorado. I wrote about this in my blog. Richard suggested we talk about it on the air. So, Richard.
Well, the reason I wanted to talk about it was because you mentioned that you chose this strategy of as minimal variance as you possibly could.
Yes.
And so I think that this idea of free bets, so if you lose your initial wager, you're given a free bet. And then when you make that bet, if you win it, you get paid the amount that bet would pay, but they take the bet itself away. So say you have a $1,000 free bet and you bet it on an even money proposition, you would get 1,000, but they would take the free bet away. So it's kind of like a coupon or a free chip, a non-negotiable. I forgot the other word for it, but anyway, that's it. So your kind of approach was to do that, make an even money bet on both sides, so that you had to win one. So I just wanted to, in a very simple way, kind of demonstrate why that's bad. So with your strategy, let's take the juice out of it for a second. You're going to win one and lose one, so it's worth half of the face value, right? But if you just think
Yes.
about it, if you had a 2-to-1 bet where there was no juice, then you would lose it twice, and one time, wait, now I'm confused. Yeah, so one time you would get $2,000, right? And if you and you've made 3 bets, so it's now worth $666 instead of $500. So, and if you just carry this out on your own, you'll see if you move it up to 3-to-1 and 4-to-1, it becomes progressively worth more money. So anyway, so if you know that this free bet has whatever value you're going to assign to it based on how you're going to bet it, well, then the same thing happens with your initial bet, which is if I make a 50-50 bet, I'm only going to get that. Let's say you're going to do a 2-to-1 bet, so you're going to value that at $666. I'm only going to get it half the time. But if you make a higher variance bet, you're going to get that $666 more times. So that's what I wanted. That's a really important concept in these things. Kind of the definitive source on this is James Grosjean's Couponomy article, which really explains all the math in depth, and we'll link to that. But I also wanted to talk about, you mentioned Colorado, and I have a friend who was playing in Colorado. He is having all kinds of problems in Colorado getting the free bet. Like he's made bets, lost them, but then just goes round and round and round with customer service trying to get the free bet put in. I'm wondering how your experience was in Colorado.
Good. All right. There's several questions there. I was generally aware of Grosjean's article. To me, this was more of a social event. I went with several friends, some of whom wanted no variance at all. And this was a social event that we were going to do together. We were going to share a couple thousand in profits and just have an interesting day. So squeezing every penny out of this promotion was not my goal. It was to not lose, to satisfy some of the other people in the group. So, which is why I didn't do everything Richard said. Also, most of these sports books have a limit of it's got to be minus 150 or better, or minus 200 or better. So you can take, if on a minus 200 or better, you can take a 2-to-1 bet or parlay, but you can't take a 4-to-1.
No. It's the opposite. You want a plus 200, not a minus 200.
I agree.
That's how stupid the sports books are. They don't want you betting on a big favorite, which is so much better for them. So you can take plus 200 or plus 400 or plus 800. You just can't lay that.
Good. So I misread that. Okay. About Colorado. The biggest problem we had was with SI, which is Sports Illustrated Sportsbook. They have this very juicy 7,500 free bet offer on your first bet. Except it is really tough to get $7,500 in the book. If you're going to use any checking account, even if if it's long established, and you put it in, they might give you $500 out of that account. You call them up and they say, well, we need 3 months of statements, and otherwise we'll start with 500. And even if we have them, we really only go up a lot after you've had 3 bets. And of course, after you make 3 bets, your $7,500 free bet is long gone. Possibly if you had everything in PayPal or some other payment schemes, other payment venues, you could have put more in. We had 6 people in our group in Colorado. 3 of them got money in for a total of about $5,000.
Between the 3 of them?
3,
5,000 between the... Wow.
Yes. The other 3 couldn't get it in at all. And all of us had accounts with plenty of money in it, but there was always something, and it was a different reason for each one of us.
Yeah.
I, called and would set it up for me personally, and, I sent them 3 months history, and there it is, and they won't let you fund it while you're not in Colorado. So even though I had the account and send them everything in with emails and talk to them, and they go, well, it sounds like, we can get it in, so we'll just have to see when you get here. And I got there, and they shut me out. So and Colorado's not that far away from Arizona or from Nevada, but still it's a schlep to go over there and back. And so
I think I think that some of these are tied to, if you were spending more time in Colorado, I think some of these are tied to actual brick and mortar casinos that allow you, and I could be wrong about this, our listeners will correct me, I'm sure, but I think you can physically go into a casino and put money into some of these accounts, but as I say, I'm not sure about that.
Yes, possibly. We were at the Denver airport for 6 hours, 2 weekends in a row. And there's lots of these in Colorado. There's way more in Colorado than there are in Arizona. And so we got a lot of bets down, and we ended up with some kind of profit. But it's a hassle, and it's no fun. But it's that's what we did.
Yeah.
Next question. I recently watched Inside the Edge, a professional blackjack adventure on Amazon Prime. I noticed the scene where the leading player of this documentary appeared to be interviewed on Gambling with an Edge. He was indeed. I've tried to locate this episode, but have not been able to. So, do you have a link? Richard, do you have that?
Yeah, we'll put the links in the show notes. But if you just go to gamblingwithanedge.com and under the podcast, if you search Casey, the letters KC, they'll pop up. But I'll put the links in the show notes. He's been on more than once.
Yeah, and the first time was way back when we were doing live radio shows, which would have been 5 or 6 years ago before we started the podcast.
And actually, for anybody who is into dice control, the episode with him about his experience with dice control is really a great episode. So I definitely recommend you check that out.
All right. So we are going to take a brief break now for commercials, and then we'll be back. We have lots more questions. The South Point has more than 10,000 games returning at least 99%. This is more such games than anyone else has. In November, earn up to 10 $50 Walmart cards at half price. Normally $8,334 coin in, earns $25 in cash or free play. This month, you can exchange that many points for $50 Walmart cards. You will not keep your points. This makes their 0.3% slot club effectively worth 0.6% for the first 83,000 and change in coin in. On Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, there's a $32,000 hot seat promotion from 8 a.m. to midnight. Every hour, 20 lucky players playing with their card inserted win $100 in free play.
Hey, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and if you're serious about card counting, I'm sure Bob and Richard would agree that there are 3 things every advantage player needs to succeed. You need to gain the edge over the house, you need to manage your bankroll, and you need to get the hours in at the casinos. After a decade of playing professionally and running teams, I wanted to create the exact training, tools, and community I wished I had had for myself and my blackjack teams, so we created the Blackjack Apprenticeship membership. Our membership will help you perfect your game, manage your bankroll, and you'll join a supportive community of like-minded card counters and APs. Find out more at blackjackapprenticeship.com.
At videopoker.com, it's the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the games. The game of the week is Ultimate X Wheel Poker, one of the many offerings in the Ultimate X franchise. In this game, you bet 10 coins per line and are awarded bonuses this hand to be played off this hand. The difference is that instead of 12x being the multiplier you earn for a full house, as you do in regular Ultimate X, you spin a wheel. On the wheel are amounts of coins, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000, others, and several spots on the wheel giving you big multipliers for the next hand, between 14x and 20x. If you earn the multiplier, you get the normal pay for a full house, often 45, times whatever multiplier you already have. If you earn a point bonus, you get the normal pay for a full house times the existing multiplier, and then the bonus times the existing multiplier. As in regular Ultimate X, the Deuce's Wild variation is the straight flush that triggers a big bonus rather than the full house. You'll require a different strategy for this game compared to regular Ultimate X, as the multipliers for full house are bumped up and other things are lowered. In most Ultimate X versions, 5x are 5 times 5 play returns more than triple play. That is not always the case in this version. We're back to our listener questions. Do Las Vegas casinos develop their own surveillance cameras and systems? If casinos partner with a company, do most of them use the same service? Is there a company that is king of the casino surveillance industry? All right. Casinos definitely do not develop their own cameras and surveillance systems. They don't develop their own cameras. They generally develop their own surveillance systems, meaning how they use the cameras and what their surveillance department is all about. At the most recent G2E, there were several companies that sold this kind of equipment. I didn't visit them and learn the differences between them because that's not my specialty. Each company offers its own features that the other ones don't. Which one sells the most is something I don't know. Next time we have Willie Allison or another security department expert on our show, we can put this question to him. Next question. My question is, if you were going to recommend 2 video poker games to get very skilled at to earn decent comps in today's environment, which ones would they be? And that's a really relevant and simple question to ask, but it's tough to answer usefully. There are no standard video poker inventory games across the country. Each casino has its own mix of games, plus the games are different for different denomination. So the best 2 games for you to learn depends on where you're going to play and for what stakes. So you need to decide this and do some scouting before you decide what to learn. The scouting can be online. VPFree2.com. It's a database that lists the best games in every casino in the country. It's not always up to date. This is scouting and site maintenance. They're all done by volunteers, but it's a good place to start. An additional benefit of the site is it lists the games and returns, such as 9-6 jacks or better, 99.54, 9-7 double bonus, 99.11, 9-6 double bonus, double bonus, 98.98, etc. These numbers you either need to commit to memory or have written down somewhere. This is the starting point for every game you're going to play. Over time, you need to learn the value of each slot club in the casinos you frequent. This takes a while. It's relatively easy to learn that casino plays 0.1% in free play, for example. But how often do they have point multipliers? What kind of mailers do they send? Are the free gifts they give out interesting to you, or are they just crap? If you play enough in a year, does the slot club pay more? What benefits are there to higher tiers? Learning how to exploit the slot club is every bit as important as learning how to play the games well. I wish I could give you a simpler answer of learn 9-6 jacks and forget about it, but I can't do that. I hear frequent references to carnival games. Could you clarify that term and provide some examples? I'm guessing there are games that have serious house edges and one only plays for the fun of it. Richard.
Well, they have serious house edges. Actually, some of them have very low house edges if you know the proper basic strategy. But a carnival game is basically any of those games that you see in the casino that are not the traditional blackjack, craps, baccarat, roulette. It's all games like 3-card poker, ultimate Texas Hold'em, Let It Ride. The first one was Caribbean Stud. So all of those card games that many of them are variations of some form of poker, those are the carnival games. So some of them have very high house edges, especially they all have side bets. And the side bets are almost always the worst bet that you can make and often are not required. It just depends on the particular game. But definitely if you were going to play some of those games, take the time to find out the proper strategy because, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, some players have no idea the proper strategy and they're playing at enormous disadvantages.
And James Grosjean has a set of cards, pocket cards with the correct strategy on many of these games. Michael Shackelford on The Wizard of Odds has a simplified strategy for many of these games. They're both reasonably accurate. If you We're going to bet serious money. I would go with Grosjean over Shackelford. Shackelford goes more for simplicity and ease of use, and Grosjean goes more for squeezing every last penny out of it.
Actually, I should point out, I'm glad you mentioned that. So the cards that Bob's talking about are for sale at Las Vegas Advisor, and we'll put a link to those. But also, he has a new book coming out. Anthony Curtis tells us it's next in the pipeline. Who knows how long that means it'll take. And this book is specifically about carnival games. So yeah, that'll be coming out within the next few months, hopefully.
Okay, the next question. It says, I know video poker is based on a deck of cards. Assuming the same pay table, is there any advantage to playing a higher denomination? And my answer is there can be. Assuming you're playing a game where you have the advantage via some combination of the game itself, slot clubs, promotion comps, etc. A 1% edge on $20,000 coin in per hour is 20 times as large as a 1% edge as a $1,000 coin in per hour. Time can be a factor. If you're required to play $50,000 coin in a day for some reason, perhaps you get certain bonuses or may be eligible to receive a color TV or cruise or something. It takes a lot less time on a $5 machine than it does on a $1 machine. And on a quarter machine, forget about playing that much in one day. Playing in the high limit room sometimes comes with extra amenities or better service. This is countered by needing a bigger bankroll to play the higher stakes, both actual and psychological. On a $25 machine, single line, for example, being down one royal flush means you're in the hole $100,000. This would bankrupt many players. This would cause others to commit suicide. A loss this size can bring out the worst in your personality, which can cause you to do things that have long-term negative implications. Or perhaps your spouse has a big problems with swings this size. W2Gs are a factor. The larger denoms come with more of these for bigger amounts. If you file as a professional gambler and live in non-state tax state, this is no problem. Yes, you have to deal with them, but you're used to it. For gambling, for non-gambling professionals, W2Gs affect your taxes in numerous ways. Some states have withholdings on W2Gs, which you may or may not get back. And even if you do get it back, you have to file an extra tax return, which is neither free nor easy to prepare. Mississippi has a non-refundable 3% fee on W2Gs. This means you're no longer playing with the same effective pay schedule. The higher your denom, the more W2Gs you get, the lower the EV of the game. Some non-U.S. citizens have 30% withhold from every W2G. How much, if any, you get back depends on the country.
I just want to add,
yes.
But in terms of the return of the machine, the size of the denom does not matter if they have the same pay schedule. Only the pay schedule determines the actual return on the machine.
Well, that part is correct, except in Mississippi, where...
Or New York, right, where it's fake video poker.
Well, yeah, New York and Washington and a few other states have fake video poker, but and I don't know if the denomination has any effect in those states or not. But in Mississippi, there are they physically take out 3% of the taxes for W2Gs, and they're non-refundable. So if you're playing in a game, a $5 game where you get $12.50 every four of a kind takes out at least $1,250. Well, 3% of that is $37.50 every time you hit one. That really lowers your EV compared to playing $1 where you only get the W2Gs for a royal. or depending on the game, sometimes 4 aces with a kicker. The next question, I'm going to let Richard answer because so many of today were about video poker. You guys mentioned your excitement that James Grosjean is blogging again. Was hoping it would be in the show notes. Where can I find his ramblings?
GamblingWithAnEdge.com, of course. I'm surprised that wasn't in the show notes, that episode. But yes, GamblingWithAnEdge.com is your place to find everything good about gambling. So.
Well, that's a bit of an overstatement, but I'm actually delighted that James is posting on our site. I say our site because it has a Gambling with an Edge name on it, but it's on Las Vegas Advisor. But that's the site they put it on, and James is one of my heroes, and I'm glad he chooses to post on our website. Next question. I play double bonus video poker on various different types of games in Nevada. If I'm suddenly on a hot streak on video poker machine at low denominations, like pennies or nickels, should I switch it to dimes or quarters or dollars and expect the streak to continue? Or does switching jinx it? Does this matter if it's a slant top that offers multiple different games versus a standalone video poker machine or progressive? Well, there's a lot to unpack here.
Gotta watch out for that jinxing. Very serious issue.
First, double bonus scores go up and down big time. How well you've done over the past 10 minutes or so has nothing to do with what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. You cannot know a good streak or bad streak will continue whether you stay on the same machine or the same denomination or you change one or both. You never know how much you're going to win or lose over a particular session until you actually play that session. If you're playing for very low stakes, like you mentioned, pennies, nickels, or dimes certainly qualify for this, in my opinion, you're going to be playing a very bad pay schedule. You cannot win. You might win occasionally, but your losses when they come will be much larger than your wins. Still, if you enjoy the game and can afford the losses, fine, but you're hardly gambling with an edge. Lastly, you say you play double bonus on various kinds of games in Nevada. If you mean different denominations, like single line or triple play, or maybe spin poker or Subu times pay, fine. The strategy remains the same. But if you sometimes include Ultimate X or Quick Quads or a number of other game types, the strategy is very different from regular double bonus. Not only will you be playing a very bad pay schedule, because all of them are really bad when you play for the stakes you mentioned, but you'll be playing the wrong strategy if you play the same way you play regular double bonus. Insofar as jinxing goes, that's just a word that is used after the fact when the results go against you. You can use any word you want, but it's not really a real thing. Recently, I hit 3 royal flushes on 9-6 jacks or better single line $5 game, and I'm ahead $50,000. My edge is only 0.1%. So for royal flush cycle, 40,000 hands, my profit is $1,000 for a $1 million wager, but I certainly didn't play a whole cycle. $50,000 profit is 50 times the theoretical return of 50 royal flush cycles, and it may take me the next 10 years to complete. If I continue to play, my profit will be balanced out for sure. Assume the edge and promotion stay the same. Would you continue to play or completely quit playing? Congratulations on your recent success. Positive variance is a lot of fun. To me, the fact that I'm up $50,000 in one casino or down $50,000 for that matter makes little difference as to whether or not I continue to play. It's just a bankroll adjustment. You're not due for a correction or due for continued success or due for anything else. You're playing 100% 100.1% game going forward. If it was good enough to play before, it's still good enough. With that in mind, 0.1% is really skimpy, and probably it assumes perfect play, which is very possible with jacks or better, but not a given. People get tired or distracted and make mistakes periodically that can easily wipe this out and more. I assume that figure assumes some kind of promotions and or mailers and comps, but you don't specify, so I can't say for sure. Now, if $25 a hand, which is the amount for a $5 single line play, is a recreational amount for you and you can afford the swings, keep going. Betting $20,000 per hour nets you $20 on average with swings, and possibly not all in cash. If you're looking for supplemental income, $20 an hour without much risk is likely a poor choice. Even if you do decide to continue playing, for reasons I discussed earlier in the show, I suggest you take a break for that casino for 6 months or so. $50,000 is a lot of money for some places, and they can easily decide you're too good for them, even though the royal flushes were basically luck. If you continue to play, they may change the games, change the promos, or restrict you. Now, after I prepared my answer to this, which I did not share with the listener before now, I received a further email from that same listener who said, 0.1% is the free play promotion. He maybe gets $2,000 to $3,000 in a mailer if he plays $1 to $2 million a month. And his second post confused me even more. Assume for now that it's $2,000 for $1 million coin in a month. This comes out to 0.2%. Very good. But the game itself is only 99.54% to start. Adding 0.2% to that still leaves you with an expected deficit. To make this into a 0.1% advantage, you need additional 0.4% or so in benefits from the slot club, perhaps in cashback or free play. Comps count a little, but not at face value. Without that, you're gambling at a game where the house has the edge and you should surely quit. Not because you're $50,000 ahead, but because you don't have the edge.
Actually, if you're putting in $1 million a month, you might be getting some substantial comps, cash comps of some sort, right? I mean, that's an enormous amount of action to be giving somebody. You know, maybe he's getting airfare or something like that.
Well, if he's playing that much, it's more of a local place, or it's more local to him. Also, the $2,000 to $3,000 a month that he's talking about is this cash. It comes in the form of a mailer. Now, there's certainly got to be comps if there's any place useful in that casino to spend the comps. There might not be. Could be the restaurant is not particularly attractive, or the rooms have bed bugs or whatever. But there could be things to do, and those things count, but you're still playing with a deficit. Who decides who gets into the Video Poker Hall of Fame? Who or what runs it? Does it have a physical location other than in a file folder on somebody's desk, or in a virtual location? There is a Video Poker email bulletin board called VP Free. Has about 12,000 members belonging to it. The group has established the Video Poker Hall of Fame beginning in 2002, and annually has a member vote for new inductee. At most, one new member will be inducted each year, and only then if that person receives at least 33% of the vote. So people who've been on this show, I'm in the Hall of Fame. Michael Shackelford's in the Hall of Fame. Stanford Wong's in the Hall of Fame. There's several other members, most of whom have not been on this show. All right. We are out of questions.
Oh wait,
We
I have one more that somebody sent me, and that was, um, why don't we have someone on the show to talk about crypto? And my thought on that is that would be really interesting, but most people that I hear talk about it, listen to, whatever, seem to be adamant uh, on one side or the other, right? You have the sort of Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett people on one side saying it's the next tulip mania and it's all going to go broke. And you have people on the other side who are zealots, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that, it's impossible that this isn't going to be the future, yada, yada, yada. So I think it's an interesting topic, but I don't think anybody really has all the answers. And if there was somebody with a more nuanced approach, I think it could be an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, a friend of Richard's and mine was, he's doing various things related to cryptocurrency, and he's offered to show us what he's doing. And he suggested first read this book and so I go, well, yeah, that's fine. And I started to read the book. The beginner section was more complicated than I wanted to get into. And so I didn't even get to the advanced sections. And so it is, there are some opportunities here. It is not trivial by any means. And so I decided this was not going to be something I wanted to get into. I'm at a point in my life that I don't really need the extra money, and I don't need to work really, really hard at something that's just going to be a casual outcome with a huge amount of risk. So earning an extra $5 million would not change my life a lot. Losing $5 million would change it tremendously. And I don't want to have the possibility of that change, even when the odds are in my favor. If they are. All right. So we're out of questions, which is fine because we're near out of time for the show anyway. Please continue to send them to us.
Especially now when we're struggling to find guests at the moment. So.
All right. At the end of each show, we have a recommended section. So Richard, what do you got?
So my recommended this week is a singer-songwriter who puts out a Facebook video on Thursdays, Facebook Live on Thursdays called 3 on Thursday. And he plays 3 songs. That's it. So his name is Daryl Purpose. You can just find him on Facebook on Thursdays at 5 o'clock Pacific time. And check out his music. And then if you like his music, then you can, buy his songs or whatever. But it's free.
By any chance, is this Daryl Purpose in the Blackjack Hall of Fame?
Oh, I hear that he does play some blackjack occasionally, yes, or he used to.
All right. My recommended is a novel called The Cellist. This is a novel by Daniel Silva, features his protagonist, Gabriel Allon, who is now the director of Israeli intelligence. The Russians poison a dissident who had once saved Allon's life, and Allon seeks revenge. A young German female cellist, Isabel Brenner, is a key player in this. The novel features Putin, Trump, and Biden, and the events of January 6th play into the plot. It's a compelling thriller, fictional, yet with some unrevealed relationship to true events. If you think Trump bears no responsibility for the January 6th insurrection, you're probably not going to like what this novel has to say. All right. Thank you very much, Richard. This has been fun. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.